The silver vase crashed against my cheekbone with a sickening crack, jolting me from sleep. My vision exploded into a kaleidoscope of stars as warm blood trickled down my face. Not the abstract concept of betrayal, the actual physical moment of it. I stared up at my parents looming over my bed, champagne glasses in their free hands, their faces distorted by shadows and contempt. "Serves you right for trying to upstage your sister," Mom hissed, swirling her drink as casually as if we were discussing the weather. "Let's see them take pictures of this face tomorrow." The wedding, my sister, the guest room. The pieces aligned in my mind as blood pooled on the pillow beneath me. "What?" I choked out, tasting copper and disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Dad laughed, not nervous or guilty, but amused, as though I'd asked him to recite a joke. "You should have stayed invisible. But no, you had to wear makeup. You had to stand too close to the groom's mother." He leaned closer, breath sour with expensive champagne. "You're nothing. You're the backdrop." My name is Julia. I'm 32 and a librarian. This is the story of how I transformed from family backdrop to the mirror that shattered their perfect image. I tried to stand, but the room tilted violently. My eye was already swelling shut, my lips split and pulsing with each heartbeat. Blood dripped onto the guest room carpet, the one Mom had special ordered for my sister's pre-wedding weekend. "Stay down," Mom commanded, her voice cold as January steel. "You already ruined the dress rehearsal just by being there. Tomorrow's her big day, not yours." These people who stood over me, they were the ones who'd held my hand during thunderstorms, who'd told bedtime stories with different voices for each character. Now they raised their champagne flutes in a grotesque toast. "To peace and perfection," Dad said, clinking his glass against Mom's. "One less distraction," Mom added, both of them silhouetted against the dim hallway light. I crawled into the bathroom, fingers trembling as I locked the door and switched on the light. The mirror made me scream, not loudly, but a strangled sound caught behind my teeth. My cheek was deep crimson, swelling rapidly. A jagged gash ran above my eyebrow, blood streaming down in thin rivulets that merged at my jaw. I looked like I'd been hurt badly. I pressed a hand towel to my face, sinking onto the cold tile floor. The strangest part wasn't the pain or the betrayal. It was how I didn't cry, not even once. That terrified me more than my reflection. I felt nothing but a spreading chill, like ice water replacing blood in my veins. Morning arrived with a harsh banging on the bathroom door. "You better not make a scene," my sister's voice sharp as the edge that had cut my face. "Don't you dare ruin this." Mom joined the chorus. "You either come out and put on that dull gray dress we picked for you, or you leave." I opened the door slowly. All three of them stood there. My sister in her silk robe, hair in perfect curlers, my parents flanking her like royal guards. They recoiled in unison. "Oh my God," my sister muttered. "You look... Jesus, what did you do to yourself?" Before I could answer, Mom snapped. "She probably fell. She's clumsy. Always has been." Then she turned to me with narrowed eyes and whispered, "And no one will believe you over us." She pushed a concealer stick into my palm like a threat. An hour later, I stood at the back of the church, my face so bruised and patched that I resembled a poorly restored painting. Guests turned to look, some concerned, others confused. Not one person asked if I was okay. During the vows, Mom leaned over and whispered, "Smile. At least pretend to be useful." Dad chuckled beside her. "She's lucky we even let her attend." That was the precise moment something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Sharp, thin, precise, like a surgeon's scalpel making the first incision. They thought I'd stay small, that I'd slink away, forget, disappear. But I was done being their backdrop, and I already knew exactly what I'd do. The morning after the wedding, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains like knives slicing through my skull. Every pulse in my face brought fresh throbs of pain. I tried to move my jaw and felt the sharp sting where skin had split overnight. My reflection looked worse than before, dark purple blooming under one eye, dried blood at the corner of my mouth, and a scratch curving down my cheek like a cruel signature. Downstairs, laughter floated up from the kitchen, the kind that pretends nothing happened. My father's booming voice carried through the vents. "Big day today. Our perfect daughter's wedding. Nothing could ruin it." My mother chimed in. I made sure of that. My sister's giggle followed, airy and self-satisfied. I sat frozen, hands clutching the edge of the bed. The anger didn't come all at once. It built in quiet layers. Shock first, then confusion, disbelief, until finally something colder than rage settled in my chest. I stood, washed my face with cold water that stung like needles, and wrapped a scarf around the worst of the bruises. When I went downstairs, Mom looked up from the table and gave a rehearsed gasp. "What happened to your face?" she said loudly enough for the caterers to hear. "You should have been more careful walking in the dark." Dad sipped his coffee. "Maybe clumsiness runs in the family," he muttered, eyes sparkling with mock amusement. I wanted to scream the truth. I wanted to pull the vase from the trash and slam it onto the breakfast table, shouting, "This is what you did to me." But I didn't, because I remembered how quickly they rewrote stories, how easily they turned me into a liar. Every bruise I'd ever had, every tear they'd labeled as attention-seeking, no one believed the invisible daughter. So I sat quietly and observed every detail. The way Mom's hand shook slightly when passing the sugar, how Dad's smile never reached his eyes, my sister's practiced laugh whenever someone mentioned the previous night's celebration. At the lakeside wedding venue with its crystal chandeliers and white roses, I stayed at the edge of the crowd. My sister glowed in her designer gown, walking down the aisle arm in arm with Dad, the same man who'd nearly broken my nose 12 hours earlier. Mom followed proudly, whispering to guests, "Both my girls look radiant today." I caught the pitying glances people gave me. They assumed I'd had an accident or perhaps cried myself swollen from jealousy. No one asked for the truth. They never did. After the ceremony, I stood near the catering tent while everyone toasted champagne. My sister's husband lifted his glass to my parents. "You've raised the most beautiful woman I've ever met." Everyone clapped. My father turned and raised his glass too, looking directly at me. "To family," he said with a smirk, "even the ones who try their best not to ruin photos." The crowd laughed. My stomach twisted into knots. Mom leaned toward a group of women and whispered loudly enough for me to hear. "She used to be pretty before she stopped taking care of herself. Always wanted to steal her sister's spotlight." Their giggles cut deeper than any physical wound. My phone buzzed in my purse. A message from Sarah, my coworker from the library, the only person who ever believed me. "You okay?" I typed back. "Not really, but soon." For the rest of the reception, I moved through the crowd like a ghost collecting memories. I listened, memorizing every cruel sentence, every mocking smile. I watched my parents dance to soft jazz, clinking their glasses again, whispering. Finally, something to be proud of. That's when an idea crystallized, slow, sharp, deliberate. Not revenge through chaos, not screaming, not mere exposure. Revenge through image. They cared about appearances more than life itself. Their pride wasn't love. It was currency. They spent it at church, at community meetings, at dinner parties. Our perfect family, our perfect daughters. They lived for it. So I decided to take it. After the reception, while the newlyweds posed for professional photos, I slipped into the bride's suite. My sister's phone sat unlocked on the vanity beside her lipstick and perfume. One tap, and I found everything. Message threads with friends, her fiancé's bachelor party photos, not-so-innocent texts between her and the wedding planner. Every secret they'd tried to bury under champagne and pearls was right there. I didn't steal anything. I didn't send anything. Not yet. I just took pictures. Quiet, precise, time-stamped. Then I borrowed my father's phone from his jacket pocket. He never locked it. Inside, hundreds of messages with local officials, suppliers, business partners, money, bribes, his career built on hidden deals and fake donations. And Mom, her private email folder named Helping Hands. It contained emails asking relatives for urgent support for my struggling daughter, Julia, with my photo attached. She'd collected money in my name for years, telling them I was sick or unemployed while calling me useless to my face. By the time the wedding ended, I had everything I needed. That night, they toasted again in the living room, champagne glasses clinking, music playing, my sister's laughter ringing through the house. I stood in the hallway doorway, face half lit by the lamp. Dad raised his glass toward me with mock politeness. "You can smile now, sweetheart. It's all over." Mom added, "You'll never be the pretty one, but at least you didn't ruin anything." My sister smirked. "Guess that vase really knocked some sense into you." They all laughed, and I did something they didn't expect. I smiled, a calm, strange, steady smile that made Mom's laughter stop first, because she didn't know. None of them knew that by morning, the image of perfection they'd guarded their entire lives would start crumbling. The files were already uploaded, the emails already scheduled, and for the first time since childhood, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the pain, I'd gotten used to that kind of ache long ago, but because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of them anymore. The house that used to feel like a prison now just felt temporary, like a stage set waiting to be torn down. At 5 a.m. before dawn, I walked out of my room, careful not to wake anyone. The living room still reeked of champagne and perfume. Half-empty glasses lined the coffee table. Someone's bouquet had wilted on the carpet. My parents were passed out on the couch, still in their wedding clothes, my sister snoring softly on the armchair, shoes kicked off. I stood there watching them, 3 people who'd built their entire existence on appearances, not substance. They thought last night was their victory, that they'd finally humiliated me into permanent silence. They didn't know that their obsession with image would destroy them. Because earlier that night, when I was alone upstairs, I had done what I do best, worked quietly. From my laptop, I'd scheduled 3 anonymous email drops, each set to go out at 9 a.m. sharp. My IT skills from managing the library's digital archives had taught me enough about creating untraceable email accounts and scheduling delayed sends. One to my father's biggest client list, with copies of his under-the-table payments and fake invoices. I'd found his client contacts easily in his email folders labeled by company name. One to my mother's charity donors, showing how she used my photo and fabricated sob stories about her sick daughter. Her contact list was conveniently saved under donors with every email address I needed. And the last, the most delicate, to my sister's in-laws. Just a handful of screenshots, not explicit, not cruel, just enough to make them ask questions she couldn't answer. Their contact information was right there in the wedding program I'd picked up. I wasn't out for chaos. I was out for truth. At 8:30 a.m., I packed my bag. My face throbbed with every heartbeat, but I didn't hide it this time. The swelling, the bruise, they weren't marks of shame anymore. They were evidence. I slipped on my coat and went into my son's room. He blinked awake when I touched his shoulder. He'd been staying with me at my parents' house for the wedding weekend, having spent the ceremony day with Sarah, who had watched him during the wedding. "Mom? Time to go?" "Yes, sweetheart. Somewhere warm, somewhere nobody lies to us." He nodded without question, trusting me completely, the way only a child who's seen too much can. We left before anyone stirred. The morning air bit cold but felt cleaner than it ever had. I didn't look back at the house. At exactly 9 a.m., as we waited at the bus stop heading toward downtown where I'd arranged a temporary stay at a hotel using my savings from the library, my phone started vibrating nonstop. One notification, then another, then hundreds. Dad's clients, Mom's donors, my sister's new in-laws, all replying, calling, forwarding, demanding explanations. Within hours, everything they'd built began to unravel. By noon, Dad's office was in meltdown. A client leaked one of the payment threads online. Nothing illegal on my part, just truth that couldn't be spun. His phone was still ringing when the news alert appeared. Local businessman under investigation for falsified donations. Mom's Helping Hands Foundation website went offline by afternoon. One of her donors, my aunt, had posted screenshots of every fraudulent email Mom had ever sent. "She lied using her own daughter's name," she wrote. "She said the poor girl had medical bills." Turns out, the girl was never told. And my sister, by evening, her husband's family canceled the honeymoon. The photos of her texting the wedding planner spread through small-town gossip circles, like fire in dry grass. 2 weeks later, her new husband filed for an annulment, citing fraud and deception. None of them called me, not once. Instead, by the second night, my phone buzzed with a single message from Dad. No greeting, no denial, just 5 words. "You think this fixes anything?" I typed back slowly. "No, it just shows it was never broken. Only fake." Then I turned off my phone. The weeks that followed were quieter than expected. My son and I moved into a small apartment above Rachel's bakery. I'd met Rachel 6 months earlier when I helped her set up an inventory system for her business during a library outreach program. She'd become a friend who listened when others wouldn't. She didn't ask what happened when I called her about needing a place. She just left a blanket folded on the couch and said, "New starts mean no explanations needed." I took a leave of absence from the library, eventually resigning to take a job helping Rachel manage the books. My son started school nearby. He made a friend, his first real friend, and came home one afternoon with a drawing of the 2 of us standing under a big yellow sun. "Mom, I made you look happy," he said. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. 2 months later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph printed on expensive paper. My parents sitting in their once proud living room, now half empty, auction signs visible through the window. My sister sat beside them, mascara streaked, expression hollow. The investigation into Dad's business dealings had resulted in significant fines and the loss of his professional license, forcing them to sell most of their possessions. Across the photo, in Mom's handwriting, were the words, "Are you happy now?" I pinned it to the refrigerator, not out of spite, but as a reminder, because happiness wasn't watching them fall. Happiness was knowing they couldn't hurt us anymore. One evening after closing the bakery, Rachel found me sitting on the porch steps, staring at the sunset. "You ever think you went too far?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "No, I think I finally went far enough." She smiled a little. "Good. Just don't look back too long. Even revenge loses its shine if you stare at it." I looked toward the horizon, the last light catching my healing scar. It didn't bother me anymore. It wasn't ugly now, it was a map. Proof of what I survived, proof that I could endure and rebuild. A year later, I opened my own small cafe in town, part bakery, part art space. I used my savings and a small business loan Rachel helped me secure. I called it Glass and Grace. People always asked about the name. I'd smile and say, "Because both can break, but only one reflects light afterward." Every day I watch my son laugh with the warmth I once thought we'd never feel again. And sometimes, late at night when I closed up shop, I'd pass a newspaper stand and see my parents' names in tiny print, a reminder of the scandal they couldn't outlive, of the lies they could never clean. They used to toast to perfection. Now the only thing left for them to taste was regret. I didn't destroy them. They did that themselves. I just gave the world the mirror they'd smashed against me. And this time, I was the one holding it steady. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.